We are back on It's Always Game Day in Cincinnati. Lindsay Patterson, Mike Santagata here. Mike, it is NFL trade deadline day. Short week for the Bengals. A lot going on. A huge matchup versus the Baltimore Ravens. We'll get to that in just a moment. But the Bengals, they made at least one trade move.
True. And I like it, don't love it. It's, I mean, it's hard not to love it, I guess. So I should say I just love it. But what I'm saying is just more like an 8 out of 10 to me. Seventh round pick, who cares? Throw that away. Those picks are worthless to me. I mean, Brock Purdy, and I'm trying to struggle to come up with other seventh round picks that have made a difference. I wonder what the greatest Bengals seventh round pick of all time would be. But anyway, it's like that pick doesn't really matter. Khalil Herbert, I think, is a good runner. I watched him this morning, and knowing that now that Zach Moss is out indefinitely with a neck injury, probably for the season, what the heck is going on in Bengals Friday practices? These are supposed to be easy practices, and now T. Higgins is going to miss 2 weeks, maybe another week, and Zach Moss out for the season based off a practice injury. Okay, but Zach Moss is out, but Khalil Herbert. So I think he's a very good runner. He's kind of like a B-plus runner in every aspect you could think of. Maybe at his best in short yardage, which I was surprised by. 5'8", 210-pound back, but I think that natural leverage of being shorter helps him out in this situation. I looked at all of his short yardage runs from 2022 to 2023, and he converted 14 out of 17 for first downs. That's insane. I mean, those are like quarterback sneak numbers. The Bengals running backs are much worse than that at the moment. It's actually one of the worst things they do. They just do not fall forward on contact. They don't finish these short yardage runs. And I thought Zach Moss was going to be that guy, but he's not. At least hasn't been this season. He does fall forward on contact. He finds hidden yardage that way. He also is pretty shifty. He has good vision. These are all like B-plus stats to me, like, or attributes, whatever you think of them. They're all like pretty good. Like none of these are like, oh, he's the best. He's got the best vision in the league. He's got, he's the shiftiest back in the league. None of this is true, but somewhere in that B to B plus range across all of these, which makes him into like a very good runner because he's very balanced. He can finish forward. He can make guys miss. The only thing that's missing as a runner to me, glaringly, is top end speed. He has crossed 20 miles per hour twice, according to Next Gen Stats, since 2022, because that's as far back as I can go. And on both those runs, he got caught from behind. He has not hit like 22 miles per hour and just broken something 80 yards down the field. He has a 60-something yard run, but he got caught from behind on it. So I think that's the one part that just stops you from being like, yeah, he's a great runner, but is he a true game breaker? Probably not. But I think he's a very good runner. My concerns and why I didn't just because that in itself is like, oh, that's an A to give up a 7th round pick for it. My concern is the pass game. He is an inconsistent pass protector. I think he sees things a little bit late sometimes. He doesn't have the best base, and he has losses inside, outside, across his face, and through him in pass protection. Most of the Bears guys I talked to were saying, like, yeah, he's not really a pass protector. He tries. And like that's worth something. And when he does get his base and his feet, his eyes, everything lined up correctly, he does a great job. So when that's there, it works. I don't think he can fill in Zach Moss's role in that. I think you're probably looking at Drew Sample as your third down and long pass protector again. To me, maybe they'll try it out. Maybe he'll improve because he didn't really get a lot of run this year either. He was kind of buried in that depth chart this season. And then as a receiver, I didn't see much. I saw a couple of drops when I watched his targets from 22. Ran one real route. He ran a choice route and he dropped the ball. And then they stopped throwing it to him. I think he, in theory, could be a good screen guy because he is good in space, because he is shifty, because he makes the defender in the open field miss. He makes his defender miss, would be what I'm saying. Is there's a safety, middle of the field, one-on-one, and he'll make that guy miss pretty consistently. So I think that leads to him being a good screen player, but we haven't seen it that much. There's flashes of it. I don't think you could trust him that he's going to become a good receiving back, though. I think that would be a little bit of a leap from what I watched in his NFL game. So that is like your quick report, and there will be a article up on my on my Khalil Herbert thoughts. Overall, I think it's a good move. It was close to being a great move. When you consider what they gave up, we consider what they're going after, but I just think the passing game stuff is just a little bit of a shaky fit for me. But I do think he fits what the Bengals are currently running, with all that inside zone and duo from Gunn. I think he does a good job with that.
I did see a report the Bengals had interest in him going into the season. So obviously, this was an opportunity for them to say, all right, well, we'll offer you a seventh. And honestly, it probably was an exchange for what they got for the Joe Mixon trade, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
So I want to say this first of all, Zach Moss, hopefully he has a full recovery. I know that they're going to wait it out for a few weeks and then determine how long he's going to be out, but more than likely, obviously, the whole entire season. So hopefully he can bounce back. And neck injuries can always be a scary thing. But with Herbert, I know he was in Chicago, so it's not like it's that far. It's about a 50-minute plane ride and 3.5 hour car, maybe 4. I haven't driven to Chicago in a long time. And he was already at practice when Joe Burrow was talking about him in his press conference. And, he was asked, is he going to play on Thursday night? It's obviously a really quick turnaround. He's like, look, we can talk him through some things. Chase Brown's obviously going to be running back number 1, but I think it is smart for them to bring another running back in. I don't think that they have a lot of faith in having Travion be running back number 2. And it was important to bring another guy in who was kind of low on their depth chart in Chicago because they had other guys. So we'll see how it works out for them. But a few things I do want to note, because today's the only practice for the Bengals. And when I say practice, it's a very light walkthrough. They're having it at Paycor as we're recording right now. So the Bengals have put out injury reports over the last 2 days. T. Higgins hasn't practiced the last 2 days. And honestly, at this point, it is very concerning to say, when is T. Higgins going to come back? I didn't even realize this, but he has actually missed the last few Baltimore games on the road. And this is a huge game in the AFC North. Not to have him out there, it's really unfortunate, the quad injury. So they're going to more than likely be without T. Higgins. Some encouraging news I do want to offer is Orlando Brown Jr. went from did not participate to limited. Again, very light practice. But I do think it would be huge to have Orlando Brown Jr. back, even though Cody Ford did step up. But it's a little different. You're on the road. You're playing the Baltimore Ravens. You want to have Orlando Brown Jr. back out there. So not great news on the T. Higgins front. But Orlando Brown Jr. limited. And I guess we could talk a little bit about Burton. I know we ended the podcast with that. I don't want to make it too much about it because I think, there are other things to talk about with the Cincinnati Bengals and this offense. But I will say this about Jermaine. This is his next opportunity. I'm not sure if you saw this, Mike. I really don't want to get into the picture or anything like that. I just mentioned it, the picture. But I think it is weird posting what athletes are doing outside of work when the reaction you're trying to get on social media. We can talk all we want about it being disappointing that Jermaine Burton wasn't there and he was a no-call, no-show, didn't show up to practice. Yeah, you let your teammates down. But now it's about moving on. And Zach Taylor has talked about it. Joe Burrow has talked about it. Jamar Chase talked about it today. Your next opportunity is Thursday Night Football. You're back in the building today. Leave the guy alone. It's just weird to me seeing that stuff. And I hope he can make a little bit of an impact. I hope he is included in the game plan if T. Higgins isn't going to be out there. I hope Mike Gesicki is continued to be utilized more as their wide receiver too. Do you have anything to add about the Burton stuff anymore? Or you just want to move on from it?
Yeah, just put it all behind you, move forward is what I would think. I mean, I was expecting T. Higgins to play in this game going into the week, I think. Maybe foolishly. So I thought maybe that was his best opportunity, but it seems like he has another opportunity to, win over that second wide receiver spot that they are sorely missing when it comes to an Andre Iosivas and Trent Irwin. And now with Eric Aldown, they can't even just spam 12 personnel. They kind of need that 11 personnel look. Mike Gesicki is going to fit into that maybe. So maybe really talking about wide receiver 3, but the Ravens are also interesting to me because Kyle Hamilton is a heck of a defender. And if he is matched up with Mike Gesicki, now you need somebody else to win. Because a big reason they were doing so well against the Ravens the last time they played them was because they had T and Jamar. And it's just like, let's just let those guys dunk on these corners. They're much better than these corners. And they don't have that this time. So you probably want a Burton out there, although Iosivas had a pretty good game against the Ravens earlier this season. We'll see. I don't know. I think this is your chance to turn around. I mean, it took Tyler Boyd years to do the same thing. So I wouldn't write him off, but I also think, just be smart and put your head, nose to the grindstone and become a great receiver.
Yeah, I think it would be huge for him. And look, it could be a couple catches. It could be a big play in this game. You're on the road, AFC North. This is a way to win back your teammates, and I think it would be a huge opportunity for him. And I hope he capitalizes on it. I hope he works out just fine for the Cincinnati Bengals. But obviously, it wasn't off to a great start early on in his rookie year. So we'll see what that looks like. But I think we should get into the game. Short week for them. Mentioned the injury report. Hopefully Orlando Brown Jr. goes. Just doesn't feel that encouraging because the Bengals are on a plane tomorrow. They travel to Baltimore. Games on Thursday night. This is the last walkthrough that they'll have. Very light week for them. It's going to be tough, Mike. It's going to be tough. I know Lamar Jackson, their injury report came out today. He didn't practice, but Lamar didn't practice all last week, and he had a perfect passer rating. So none of that really concerns me too much. He is expected to play against the Bengals, obviously not surprising. One to watch, and I would say when it comes to the Baltimore Ravens offense is Isaiah Likely has been out the last 2 days of practice, and he seems like someone who usually can dunk on the Cincinnati Bengals when you think about the matchups with tight end groups, and maybe it's more of a Mark Andrews type of game. And obviously Derrick Henry is insane. This is one of the best offenses in the NFL, and we saw that when they were playing in Cincinnati. It's prime time. It's on the road. Thursday Night Football. It's at home in Baltimore. A tough game for the Cincinnati Bengals going in, but what are you expecting just from Baltimore's offense versus the Cincinnati Bengals defense, who I'm still not 100% believing on until they continue to play these really good offenses, even though we saw them against Baltimore and they struggled against them. But what are you expecting?
I think that watching the Bengals defense this past game, they were better than they were. Like, I don't think it was solely quarterbacks missing things. There was, some of that, obviously, but I don't think it was as bad as I thought when I watched like them against Daniel Jones and them against Deshaun Watson, where I was like, oh, a good quarterback would have probably hung 28 points on this defense. I didn't feel that way. I felt like they did a pretty good job in coverage in this game, and the pass rush was better as well, not even just from Trey. There was a Miles Murphy pressure too. There was a side pressure in there, a Jenkins pressure. It's like, some of the guys got in there. So it's interesting, cautious optimism. Now they're running to the buzzsaw that is the Ravens offense this season. This Ravens offense has been insane. Isaiah Likely being out probably meant more to me before they got Deontay Johnson, because now they just have an abundance of weapons. It's like, I think Isaiah Likely being out is good for the Bengals because it probably also means they're not going to do a ton of 12, 13 personnel. They might do some 12 with Kolar, and that's if Likely is out. We don't know. Might do some 12 with Kolar and Andrews, or Ricard they still have in there. But, maybe you get a little bit more of a spread out offense from them. And in that case, Mike Hilton should be able to stay on the field in those scenarios. So I think that plays into their hands. They did an okay job against this Ravens offense, like early in that first game, from what I remember. Maybe not the very beginning, but
Lamar went off.
Second half for sure.
Yeah.
But I remember early on, I was like, wow, they got a couple of stops. Because I remember the first Bengals punt, and I thought, oh boy, here we go. They're going to go down 14-0. Then they got the ball back. And I was like, okay. So, low bar that I'm talking about here, but they're able to get the ball back against this Ravens offense. So they can do that a few times. I think the Bengals offense versus Ravens defense is interesting, but I feel like the Bengals put up points. It's been a good offense. It's left some meat on the bone in terms of execution, whether that's from the wide receivers or from, a couple of throws from the quarterback, or especially the run offense before this week. We'll see. This is a good Ravens run defense. So let's see if Chase Brown can do something similar to what he did last week. That would be huge for them. I don't know if I expect it. I do think, to go all the way back to Khalil Herbert, I think he could theoretically play, because to me, inside zone, wide zone, etc., those are all the same for the running back. Like, maybe the offensive line has different calls that they make, like whatever when we're going to double team this guy, move up and switch that or fold this or whatever, that changes. To me, the run game part of it is like, you're going to read that the same way ever since high school. Like, inside zone, you're going to read the 3-tech inside. At wide zone, you're going to read the end man on the line and work your way inside. Duo, you read the linebacker, make him wrong. So I think he could play the things that, come as a struggle would be the passing game stuff where, maybe he doesn't know all the verbiage there. And I saw Travion Williams miss a pickup just from Cordell Volson trying to communicate something to him last week and got Burrow crushed. So maybe don't want him in those situations because that doesn't always translate to like, what is your assignment on this? And he might not know, but I think he would know how to run inside zone, wherever you are. It's the same thing. The pass game, those could all be different. Maybe they call it a different thing, but even in the huddle, you could just say whatever the name of Wanda 18 or something is, and just also say like that's wide zone left to Herbert or something, just like because he'll know how to read it. So I think that's possible. We see running backs sometimes just step in and be able to contribute right away. I remember I think Royce Freeman last year came out of nowhere and ran for like 150 yards for the Rams, something like that. Maybe it's a little bit wrong in my head, but these running backs that are experienced, they should be able to just pick it up and go. I'm not saying he will play, but I think he could play, which would help them a lot because I did not see much behind Chase Brown that made me confident in the other running backs.
Yeah, I agree when you look at this matchup. And the thing about it, look, it's going to be tough for the Bengals. They're on the road. They're playing in Baltimore. But these games have been pretty close. So I'm still expecting it to be a close game, maybe lower scoring than I think, even though both defenses aren't off to their best start. But I agree with you. Ravens defense can stop the run. Will Chase Brown be able to get anything going like he did last week against the Raiders? Khalil Herbert, maybe he's a 1 yard, 2 yard guy that they need when it's 3rd and 1. Maybe they're in the red zone and he's able to push it in. So we'll see what that looks like for the run game. But for me, offensively, look, Joe knows what happened last time. He was asked about this game being on the schedule right around the same time it was this time last year, almost the 1 year anniversary of everything happening. He remembers the injury. He's like, look, I think they probably put it on the schedule like this for a reason. Same place, same time, Thursday Night Football, November in Baltimore. And it's a huge opportunity for them because the Cincinnati Bengals, they're going to be on prime time for the next few weeks. And I can't think of a better time on Thursday night to just show everybody, hey, we're still in this. Look, I don't know if they're going to win the AFC North or anything like that, but it's so hard for me to count out the Bengals just because of the way Joe Burrow is playing this year. And maybe it's a little bit of a bounce back game for Jamar Chase. And I know it sounds crazy to think because Jamar has been producing all season long too, but I'm sure he would have liked that touchdown in the end zone back. It was a little more on Chase than it was Joe. And I think this is a perfect opportunity for them to do that. I think Jamar can win over the secondary. And of course, if you're Baltimore, all the pressure is going to be over on Jamar if T. Higgins is more than likely out. You're going to force the Cincinnati Bengals to throw to guys like Yoshi, Mike Gesicki, maybe Jermaine Burton is in the mix. Trent Irwin, I'm sure, will be active too. But you're going to put everything on Jamar Chase to make Joe utilize his other weapons. And it's going to be different than playing the Raiders. You're on the road in the AFC North matchup. It's normally close. So I still think this game is going to be close. But, Mike, I'll go ahead and let you give your prediction of what's going to happen on Thursday Night Football.
Ooh, but also just like to say, I want to see the Bengals early in this game find ways to get Jamar the ball. I don't mean that in like a force it situation, like just a bunch of crappy screens and he's not able to do anything with them. Not that you can't throw screens. I mean, we saw him take a bubble screen quite a ways against the Ravens last time they played. But just find ways to get him so he's not just running into a double team. And, it almost feels frustrating to me. It does feel frustrating to me. I can't imagine what it feels like for Jamar to just like run straight into like this corner is rolled up and can be aggressive as all heck. And the safety is over the top of this. So like, there's no shot I'm getting the ball here. And I feel like that's probably very frustrating for a wide receiver. Prediction wise, I'm most concerned about how the Ravens' run game will look. Now, the Bengals did a good job of stopping this last time, except for the very end. So that feeds into it. But I also think the Ravens finally made their adjustment and threw out of run looks, and that's when they started carving this Bengals defense up. We'll see what the adjustments are for the rematch. But I'm very concerned about the number one rushing offense in the league going against the Bengals' run defense, which might be without BJ Hill. Is there an update on him?
He's been out. He's out today.
Yeah. So probably without their best run defending defensive tackle. Rankins is fine in that aspect. Jenkins is up and down, but okay. And Jackson is a roller coaster defending the run. So, like they don't really have a great interior guy, and they didn't trade for one. Everyone was talking about edge, and I was like, if BJ Hill misses time, don't you want an interior defender? But I think the Ravens win this. They're at home, short week. That is tough. Thursday night craziness applies. Thursday night games can always be weird. So I don't feel like great about predicting who's going to win, but I think the Ravens win it just because their run offense and their ability to throw out of those looks is probably going to give the Bengals defense issues. I don't think the Bengals have the personnel on defense to put together two quality performances against the Ravens. It was a stretch to say the first one was really a quality performance. It was just okay for a half and then a disaster for a half. I don't know if they could put together another half that's a quality performance. Hopefully, but I think that they're just scrambling for answers on defense, and they're running into a very good offense. Do think the Bengals can score in this game, but I think it ends up something like 31-27 Ravens.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, there's a little bit of me that wants to take the Bengals in this because it's Joe Burrow. I truly am putting everything in Joe Burrow's basket, and that isn't fair to him that he has to play a hero ball out there, but he's just insane this year, and it's really been fun to watch. And I just wish, a couple of the balls would have bounced a different way when you look at the first time they played the Ravens, when you look at the Kansas City Chiefs game. Honestly, if you had one stop against the Commanders, we're looking at the season in a whole different light. But unfortunately, this is a game that you're going to want to have in the AFC North standings, and just overall, if you have any hope to make some kind of run to get in the postseason. But for me right now, I will say this. I do not think the Bengals win. I think they lose 27-20. Derrick Henry is insane. And obviously Lamar is playing some of the best football. I would say the best quarterbacks in the NFL playing the best football right now are Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow. Yeah. And, we're going to see that, I would feel, on Thursday Night Football. We saw it again the first time they played each other. Joe Burrow threw for 5 touchdowns and they didn't win the game. And it's absolutely insane to even think about, but they had the opportunity, and unfortunately the defense couldn't hold it together towards the end. So I just think, I think they lose, but I still think for some crazy reason, even though I said right before the Raiders game, they need to win 4 games for me to believe in them again. We'll see if, but I still think that there's still this tiny bit of hope. I feel, even if they fall to the Ravens in this game, that you still have opportunities. You can still control things when you play Denver, when you play the Los Angeles Chargers the following weekend. It doesn't get easier for you because you see the Steelers twice. You have to play the Browns again. I know their season is going, it's going to be difficult for them. But unfortunately, I want this to be a revenge game for Joe Burrow, and I'd probably feel a little bit better if T. Higgins was going to be out there to take them in this game, because I do think that this offense is really, really good. And obviously we can say the same thing about the Baltimore Ravens, but Derrick Henry and Lamar, and I think this defense can stop Derrick Henry, even though he is very, very good right now. But Lamar is playing some of his best ball. So it's really hard for me to say the defense can. And I want to add this into kind of talking on the trade deadline day. And I know we talked about them making a move for Herbert. I do want to add that even if I feel like the Bengals would have added a defensive tackle today or even this evening, or he would have flown in this evening and it was final at 4:00, I wouldn't expect that defensive player to play on Thursday Night Football. Yeah. So even if they would have had another guy ready for Thursday, I wouldn't have felt really optimistic that would have changed my mind. And honestly, there wasn't any huge splashes, to be honest with you, today. Nothing too surprising. And a lot of the guys who were currently on the trade block are working on possible extensions for their teams now. So
Darius, that was me. But that's like they would never be able to trade for him because the Browns wouldn't trade him within a division.
Never. So it unfortunately didn't work out for them on the defensive side. And yes, I do think that they could use more bodies, especially on the defensive tackle. And you want to see more out of your edge room. I mean, Trey currently is doing everything he possibly can on the defensive side, and he does need help. You want to see more out of Cam Taylor-Britt. It has been a minute, and maybe some of these younger guys are going to be utilized when you look at guys like DJ Ivy. When it's a safety room, will we see more Jordan Battle? Will he come up big in prime time in the safety room? I felt like he was out there more than Von Bell this past week, so maybe we'll see a little bit of a spark on that side. Dejon Anthony and just different guys you can use in your secondary. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be hard, but I think they'll keep it close. And just unfortunately, I hope I'm wrong and we can come back to this podcast and we're recording on Thursday night. I'm like, wow, the Cincinnati Bengals, they found a way to win. Huge win for them. They're still in this. And I would even honestly say they might still be in it to win the AFC North if they're able to pull it off on Thursday Night Football. They don't, it's going to be really difficult. And that's just unfortunate, just the way the season started. So that's where I am on the season. And it feels like Baltimore couldn't come at a worse time, to be honest with you. And I probably always feel that when they're about to play them. But man, short week, AFC North, you're coming off this huge win. But you're going to need everybody on Thursday Night Football. And I felt like the Bengals mindset, even Joe Burrow, he was angry after the game. And he said, like, look, obviously people look at that and he didn't mean for it to come off in a bad way. But he was very short in the post game. He told everyone, get your bodies right. We travel on Wednesday. Got a big game on Thursday Night Football. And even Mike Hilton said that on their way to the locker room. So they know how big this game is. And, if they want to continue to be contenders, I would say, and I know that's crazy to think about with their record right now, but yeah, I'm trying to talk myself into believing they can pull it off. I just don't know. Thursday Night Football. Maybe it feels at home.
Yeah, because like the short week and travel is difficult. I think like this game's pivotal for the AFC North. But I don't think it is like the nail in the coffin for the playoff hopes, just because the AFC is the back end of that playoff is so mediocre that the Bengals still very much alive in that. Like you mentioned with those two games against the Steelers too. I wouldn't write that off as like because I think the Ravens win the division if they win this game, I should say. So if they win this game, I think they win the division. So that means the Steelers are a wild card team. You could potentially get a leg up on them by winning two of those games. And they have a very tough back half of the schedule. Games against the Eagles, the Chiefs, just a lot of tough opponents for the Steelers in this back half. Like, I don't know who they're favored against besides the Browns. And they're a very good team this season. And the Bengals. They'll probably be favored against the Bengals, but at least at home. Anyway, yeah, that we'll see. I did not get moved a ton by that Raiders game, but I was moved more than I thought because I was thinking like, there's no way I'm going to feel any different about the team after this Raiders game. They won so convincingly that I was moved a little bit. I was like, yeah, this team is not bad as much as, I think people have talked about it. It's like not a bad team. It's certainly not a bad team. Are they a good team? I don't know. Right now, I still land somewhere in the middle, but I was a little more optimistic. I was like, yeah, you definitively beat a NFL team like this in all phases of the game. You deserve some credit.
It's crazy. We'll wrap it up soon, but if you look at the schedule, honestly, you look at their losses. You lose to Kansas City on a 4th and 16 when you had the lead. Honestly, should have won that game, and that's not even because of the call. Just overall, you should have won the game. You should have found a way to close it out. You lose to Baltimore. Opportunity. You're up by 10 in the fourth quarter. Late in the fourth quarter, up 10.
Missed field goal too to win the
Missed field goal. Lost that game. Commanders, who are a really good team in the NFC right now with 7 wins on the season. All you needed was one stop on defense. Joe Burrow played his face off. Couldn't get that done. And unfortunately, they had to settle for 3 instead of getting a touchdown in that game. And that was just unfortunate. It really just never caught up. And the Commanders went off. And they're a really good team. The Eagles, honestly, good game till the fourth quarter. Then it got crazy because of the 4th and 1 call. And that's just how the season has really rolled for them. I mean, you could look back at the 2021 season, even 2022 when they went on a 10-game win streak. Luck, health, all of that plays a factor. And I really didn't believe all that until you're standing at the season right now and saying, wow, if things would have just, that one thing, ball goes through against Baltimore, 4th and 16 doesn't get called, you're looking at a whole different season. And unfortunately, it just hasn't worked that way for the Bengals. And hopefully we're both wrong. And they find a way to win on Thursday.
Much happier discussion if they do pull it out.
Yep. You're going to have a piece over on Bengals Talk, new running back, maybe?
Yep. On Khalil Herbert. Wrote it up this morning. Or not morning. Afternoon. Wrote up this afternoon. Watched him and have it ready to go. Gave my quick report. But if you want a more in-depth one with videos that back everything I'm saying, check it out.
All right, make sure you check that out. Make sure you're following Mike over on Bengals_Sands on X. You can follow me at Patterson. Thank you, as always, for listening to It's Always Game Day in Cincinnati.